I think I'll start by talking about finding Zazen. I don't need these. What am I doing? Finding Zazen is such a remarkable thing to consider. You probably notice yourself when you arrive on the cushion or chair that this one finds Zazen simultaneously with Zazen finding this one, right? So Dogen Zenji, I meant to say this at the start. I'm going to talk about things that I've received from a lot of different teachers and teachings, but primarily Eido Roshi, the founder of Ryokohan here where we are, Gien Roshi, whose book we produced not so long ago that's available online at all your booksellers or here, Blueprint of Enlightenment. Ryokan-san, our ancestor, poet and beggar monk in Japan. Zen Master Bankei, who taught the unborn mind. Douglas Harding, who taught the headless way. And many, many more, many more. Whatever foolishness or mistakes come out, that's all me though. So a lot of people don't really know me. Who's this guy that just sat on the chair and is now talking? So I'll introduce myself a little bit at different points. But to begin with, I just want to say that my Dharma sibling, Jikyo-san, and I were side by side, shoulder to shoulder, taking monk's vows together quite a few years ago. And I'm, of course, super grateful for that relationship. She continued her training and was transmitted as a teacher. I'm very proud of that personally. And I disrobed and have been gone for 12 years, something like that. And because it would be so embarrassing to come in here disrobed and cold and all that, I haven't been back. But y'all can laugh if you want. If it's not funny though, don't laugh. I had a lot of intuitions and things at the time I was leaving. It's a pretty big deal, to be honest, that I would come back. So I'll say that it's a most remarkable thing to be here this morning and sitting with you. And when I first reappeared a month or so ago, that was quite remarkable too. Just sitting on the cushion together is such a remarkable thing, and finding Zazen together. I'm not so good on my own, left to my own devices. So it's extremely important to be able to come to a place like this and find Zazen together. So you can't even calculate the odds of having a place like this and having a person like this and that to be able to work on this finding Zazen. So back to where I was before that diversion. Dogen Zenji referred to Zazen as the gate of repose and bliss. And I want to take the word repose and change it for rest and talk about it just a little bit. And the first way I want to talk about it is to mention that this rest is not comfort, you know. It's not reveling in abandon. We get that with our phones all the darn time. So it's going to sound like I'm jumping, and I am, but I'll be right back. I took a road trip in 1986 from Memphis, Tennessee to California. I was in my mid-20s, I think. And I ended up at Zen Shinji, Suzuki Roshi's monastery at Tassajara in California. And I probably didn't know it so well at the time, but I do now. I was looking for sincerity and genuineness and earnestness. And it wasn't just that I was looking for that here, and it wasn't that I was just looking for that in the community around me. There's a rich combination of these things that I was looking for, so that the whole environment arises with sincerity and genuineness. And I did maybe 6 angos there, 6 3-month training periods before I left. And I was so fortunate. Every ango there, you're given a new assignment for practice. And I was so fortunate to be given a position right off the bat as Doan. And at that temple, Doan can be all the instrumentation, ceremony instrumentation, the Han, gongs and drums and the whole thing. And imagine this, we use the Han a bit here. Imagine at Tassajara, which is in this narrow valley in the Ventana Wilderness, way, way remote in California. Narrow, beautiful narrow valley with cabins all up and down a creek. And of course the Zendo, and it's so beautiful, very, very beautiful place. And imagine, because it's a pretty long valley, there's a Han at the Zendo. And there's another Han way down the way because you can't hear the first Han. And, you know, getting out to the second Han at a distance in the early morning and looking at your watch, and you can hear it enough to know that it started and you follow it, you know. And so you've got this valley in the dark before dawn, and the Hans are just ringing out with that sharp sound, calling everyone to the Zendo and telling us how much longer we have before we're late. And it's just, you can't even describe how gorgeous that sound is, echoing through that little canyon. So I was in love with the forms, the instrumentation and the forms, and I came to look at them as an orchestral score. You can see all the instruments, and it's on a big orchestral score. And throughout this score, it's all day. The score carries through the whole day, different things. And throughout the score, there are a lot of rests in music. You know what a rest is. So this is the first way I'm meaning this word rest when I talk about Zazen being rest. It's the space between things. and the han and the other instruments and the birds and the occasional dog and everything is immediately available to hearing. So hearing is a really good place to look when you're finding zazen. In springtime, if you're here in the morning, just a lot of birds that are singing. And the activity and the experience of hearing does not by its nature have a stickiness to it or a magnetic quality to it or a gravitational pull. And what I mean by that is when one type of bird is singing, there it is. And the next type of bird, even if it's like right on top of it, hearing doesn't discriminate. You don't have the goose taking the place of the next bird that sings. You don't have to wait, or you don't have to make some effort. There's no stickiness in its natural way of being. It just appears, right? So the skandhas, the sense gates that we chant about, they all have this quality of not stickiness, not magnetic quality, and not gravitational pull. It gets trickier when you start to look at thinking and feeling and the layering into views and perspectives and things like that. It feels much more difficult. But I want to suggest that it's the same thing. There is no stickiness, magnetic quality, gravitational pull to thinking and feeling. So finding zazen in this way is recognizing the rests in the score and abiding is a word that's used quite a bit. You can say hanging out, hanging out in the unborn original nature. The unborn is unmoving all the time. Time doesn't even make sense in that regard. So you can find it everywhere, of course. You can find it at the bottom of the breath in the moment just before the inhalation begins. The unborn is immediately there. This recognition or remembering or noticing of the unborn original nature, Buddha mind, is the beginning of practice, and the end. If you need to be comfortable, please feel free to move. So I want to navigate my way to talking about Sangha. There's all sorts of things you may notice in your Sangha practice. You may notice that there's a feeling of being different, having different qualities, even strongly different qualities to this, depending upon who you're talking with at the moment. And you may find that it changes again if you're in a group, at a meeting or at a study group. Certainly, this is a strong thing to notice if you're sitting with your teacher talking. And we really, really, really get to work on this, the appearance of stickiness in this regard. Why didn't I say what I intended to say when I sat with my teacher this last time? You know, I wasn't myself. Or planning for a meeting in a very sort of sticky way. Upset, of course, irritation. How can this person say peh in the ceremony instead of peh? Don't they know the difference? Good gosh. Zen practice is so excellent at that particular aspect of working with irritation in Sangha practice. So the tour we make in our lives from cushion to cushion contains that stuff in abundance. Drawing from the tour of cushions I've found myself on, one of the first, I think, longer retreats, sesshin, that I participated in, there was a period where a teisho, a Dharma talk, started coming up into mind, and it struck me that it was so sublime. It was so very articulate and beautiful. And so I was sure that everyone would very soon recognize my profound qualities as a bodhisattva. Absolutely sure of it. Shortly thereafter, there was an itch right on the very tip of my nose. It was remarkable how precise this itch was on the tip, and it was increasing. It was on the way up. And I was trying to be good and not move. And I noticed that I started seeing the little, mostly transparent ghost of my nose at the bottom of my field. And I could, I didn't move at that point, but all I could see was this little transparent cloud at the bottom of my field of vision. And it was itching, it was getting more, it kept going up. And I started then feeling irritation all around me, that people knew I was struggling with this itchy nose and that they were judging me. And I started getting angry. So I just scratched it. And then I was sure, especially the person right next to me, that they were so irritated. I could feel the radiation coming off of them of irritation and anger and judgment. And I got really upset with them. Now, I want to say that on the cushion next to me, this individual had arrived on the cushion that morning with a tremendous weight of grief based on some circumstance that had occurred in their family and their loved ones. And I didn't know that at the time. Nobody knew that at the time. But that's what appeared on the cushion next to me. And this person didn't notice me and my scratch. There was hard work being done that I couldn't conceive of. If I had been a little more skillful, or if this was a session much later for me, maybe the dwelling in the unborn that we're all sailing towards would have relieved some of my suffering around thinking I was being judged and getting angry at what I intuited incorrectly was happening. So the practice of Sangha is, in a way, all about dwelling in the unborn so that those who appear on the cushion can do the work that they have to do, which is beyond our conception. And as I said, the beginning of practice is just noticing the unborn original Buddha nature. And the fact that you're here at the moment means you've noticed that, so you're on the path in that sense. All beings are, of course, already the Tathagata. But the gospel of Buddhism is that there is a possibility to experience the relief of suffering to a deeper and deeper extent, not just here, but in Sangha practice. So when we find Zazen again and again and again, we encounter the unborn. In a sense, we're sitting eyebrow to eyebrow with the ancestors. I have pretty significant eyebrows, so they can pretty readily get entangled with Bodhidharma's eyebrows. And so finding Zazen means finding your eyebrows entangled with the ancestors' eyebrows. And of course, what are you seeing if that were to happen? You're just seeing clouds. Other Other times on the cushion, when it was later, I was here, I was a monk in training, and I was on the cushion, and I knew that I needed to make announcements pretty soon. And so the habits of believing the stickiness and things were there, and again, irritation. I was feeling like people aren't stepping up to sign up for this and to sign up for that, and what are we doing? Nobody's getting their acts together. And all of these occurrences also included a period of self-condemnation. I'm such a bad Zen student. That's as common as irritation. So bad. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to find Zazen. It's all a waste. Or it's so boring. There's no point. So many of these things can happen, do happen, will happen, that challenge our habits of believing in the stickiness and the magnetic quality that is not genuine. And throughout all of this, at the bottom of the breath, in that moment just before the inhalation begins again, the unborn remains unmoving. What time is it? I'm asking the celestial folks what time. Does someone know?
11:17.
Okay, what does that mean?
It's the ending 11:20, 11:30.
Oh, okay. Well, we're getting close then. I think I'm going to read a tiny little bit from Bankei, Zen Master Bankei. I hope I get the right spot, but almost anywhere you go in this type of book, you're going to be okay. So I'm not going to tell you about Zen Master Bankei. You can find out what he was about. I encountered his biography at Tassajara. I think it was the first book I picked up out of the library there. And we had personal study period every morning. And I picked his up, and it really resonated with me. And, later, if we talk about him more, you'll understand why he resonated with me. He was rebellious and all that kind of stuff. But this is taken from a sermon he gave. I think it's the right one. 2 paragraphs. When the Zen master Bankei Buchi Kosai, founder of the Ryomonji at Aboshi in Banshu, was at the great training period, held at the Ryomonji in the winter of the 3rd year of Genroku, there were 1,683 monks listed in the temple register. Those who attended included not only Soto and Renzai followers, but members of the Ritsu, Shingon, Tendai, Pure Land, True Pure Land, and Nichiren schools, with laymen and monks mingled together, thronging around the lecture seat. One sensed the master was truly the teacher of men and devas for the present age. At that time, the master mounted the lecture seat and addressed the assembly of monks and laymen, saying, "We've got a big crowd of both monks and laymen here at the meeting, and I thought I'd tell you about how, when I was young, I struck on the realization that the mind is unborn. This part about the mind, though, is something secondary. You monks, when you abide only in the unborn, we'll find that in the unborn, there's nothing anyone needs to tell you, nothing that you need to hear. Because the Buddha mind is unborn and marvelously illuminating, it gets easily turned into whatever comes along. So as long as I'm telling the lay people here not to change themselves into these different things that come their way and trade their Buddha mind for thoughts, you monks may as well listen too. That, well put, I think, in one part that jumped right out at me again there, which is trading the sticky quality that we're imagining for the unborn mind, which is natural and requires no trading, cannot be traded. Now, I am really interested, given the time, in what any of you may have to say or ask. I'll just mention that your experience of questioning during this kind of thing, I'm sure you've noticed that the question appears, and on the other side of things, there's already a movement, and it is an offering to everyone. So if you have a question or you have something you want to say, and I'll try to look at hands down below too, please come forward. Vicky.
Excuse me for doing this.
Yeah, don't do it. I can already tell.
I think you know, I just finished putting together a journal and photo album of our pilgrimage to Japan some 10 years ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
And in this photo archive, there are many pictures of your Bodhidharma face.
Oh, yeah.
Could you give me your
No, we'll do that later. Oy vey. But thank you, Mickey, for remembering that and for being the photographic historian. And someday we'll look at those and laugh.
I'm already laughing.
I know. I'm sure I intended to say bunches of other stuff because it's been a long time. So I've got all kinds of stuff built up, but I'm really happy. Yes, Bill.
Fletcher, welcome back.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you for teaching us and
Yeah, thanks.
practicing.
It's super cool to see you.
So forgive my ignorance, but the unborn mind, is that the same as beginner's minds, or as Suzuki would talk about it, or not knowing as Glassman would talk about it?
Yeah, I do believe so. These days I'm doing what we really shouldn't do, which is borrowing from scientific language to try to come up with some woo-woo things to talk about, and lately, just to be a fool, I've been thinking about what occurs as unborn mind sends a little shoot up into manifestation, thought, feeling, something like that. And at the moment, I'm referring to it very foolishly as the original entanglement of all things. So if you like physics, if you're crazy about that kind of stuff, I see the unborn as unmoving completely and potential. And then things are manifest, but remain originally entangled. That probably didn't even answer your question, but I think the answer is yes. You're absolutely right. Thank you.
really appreciated your analogy to the rest in music.
Yeah.
It's the silence, the space in which the music occurs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important. John Cage, right, the composer, was working with that idea so much.
It's
Yeah.
like the syllable om is described as the 4-element syllable. There's the ah, oo, and the silence clearly arises from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for bringing up the birds. I love the birds in here.
Oh yeah, I'm not here in the mornings. Is it quite a symphony in the morning?
Red
Yeah.
winged blackbirds
Rowdy.
out there, they're awesome.
Yeah.
We'll go down by the pond.
Right. Yeah, this is a beautiful place. This is a very beautiful place, and yeah. Wow. Anybody down there? Y'all good? Okay. I think we're gonna wrap up. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I see a hand? No. Okay. Oh, it was an okay sign. Well, thank you. Oh, I do see a bow. Yeah.
Thank you so much for speaking today, Fletcher. I really want to point to the distinction the attention you are drawing us to in that moment between the out breath and the in breath, because it's a place of great fascination for me. I've spent a lot of time, especially in Kinhin. I find myself and almost enraptured in that moment. And so I just appreciate you for drawing attention to that and for helping me explore it in a broader way. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. And we've got it. You know, each cycle we've got that, and you can hit any of the points, but that one does seem to be especially potent.
I think it's especially potent for me because of practice of end of life care and imagining the last out breath. And experiencing the last out breath and awareness at the last out breath, and that space of what is next.
Gosh, yes, that's powerful. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, well, rock and roll.
Yay.